Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining me again. Just in case you haven't noticed already, I like telling stories. I think stories are great. Jesus told stories an awful lot to try and tell people something about God. And very often when he told a story, it would be at one level just a good story, but there would be some deeper truth in it if people chose to look for that. And very often Jesus would say something like, "Those who have ears to hear, let them hear." Just giving people a hint that there might be something more in that story. So tonight, I'm just going to tell you a story. It's one of my own stories, and I'm going to leave it to you to see what you think there might be in it. Once upon a time, not so very far away from here, there was a land called Yapada. Yapada was the most beautiful land you can imagine. It had beaches with golden sand that never got into your sandwiches when you were having a picnic, and sea that was always warm enough to swim in. It had woods that were full of squirrels that would come and sit on your shoulder, and badgers and foxes that would play games and let you stroke them as if they were pet dogs and cats. The weather was always just how you wanted it to be. It wasn't always the same. Sometimes it was sunny, sometimes it was snowy, but somehow it always seemed to be just right. There were lots of people living in the land of Yapada, and they too were beautiful. Not the sort of beautiful that comes from looking nice on the outside. There were all sorts of different shapes, sizes and colours, but the sort of beautiful that shines out of people who are deep down happy on the inside. One of the reasons that the people of Yapada were deep down happy was because in their land no one ever needed to be sad. No one ever became ill or got hurt, and no one was ever mean to anyone else. But the main reason that the people were deep down happy was their king. Some kings make the most of being in charge by bossing people around and getting other people to do things for them. But the king of Yapada was not like that. He loved to do things for other people. So, on a warm sunny day, you would be very likely to see the king giving out ice cream on the beach. On a cold, snowy day, you might well find him making hot chocolate for the people who were building snowmen, or tending a bonfire where people would gather and talk happily as they warmed their fingers and toes. The people loved their king. They loved to be with him, and when he would let them, they loved to do things for him. All in all, Yapada was a pretty good place to be. One day, the king decided he'd like to do something extra special for the people of his land. So he decided to have an ultra-enormous, extra special super supper party and invite absolutely everyone to come. Just thinking about it made him so deep down happy inside that he almost seemed to be glowing outside. He began to get ready. He decorated his house with lights and streamers and things that sparkled and glowed. He wrote invitations to everyone in the land, not missing out one single person. And he prepared food. If you imagine all the nicest food you've ever eaten or wanted to try, it was all there. From chicken and roast potatoes to jelly and ice cream, fish and chips to custard chocolate cake, from curry and rice to treacle sponge and custard. It was all there. The night of the ultra-enormous extra special super supper party arrived. Everything was ready. As the sun began to set, the guests began to arrive. From all four corners of the land, they came to enjoy being with one another and with their beloved king. As the party got underway, the king looked at his people with love in his eyes and joy in his heart, and he felt so deep down happy, he thought he would burst. He wandered out into his garden and looked across the sea that was always warm enough to swim in. And as he looked, he thought of the other land, the one on the other side of the sea, the land where things were not always as perfect as they were in Yapada, the land where people were not always deep down happy, the land where there was sadness and unhappiness and pain. As the king looked across the sea, he knew that he couldn't just ignore the other land. He knew that he would have to go and share his own deep down happiness with the people who lived there. As his people were all together at the party, the king explained to them what he was going to do. And despite the fact that there was no sadness in Yapada, the people were sorry to see their king leave his beautiful land and his beautiful people and the ultra-enormous extra special super supper party. But he assured them that he would soon return, once he'd shown the people of the land on the other side of the sea how to have deep down happiness inside them, and maybe even bring them back to share in the party. And so the king left his perfect land and set off across the sea, taking nothing with him but the glow of deep down happiness that was inside him. I think some of you might have heard the story before, but a good story always bears telling more than once. I'm going to leave it to you to work out whether you think there might be any sort of deeper truth in that story. But now, as always, I'm going to finish with a prayer, and if you'd like to make it your prayer, feel free to stick an amen in the comments at the end. Father God, thank you for the gift of stories. Thank you for the way that a story can convey truth in a way that's easy to understand. Help us to see truth in the stories that are around us, your truth. Amen. Thank you for joining me. See you again tomorrow, I hope. Bye for now.